Any interesting stories? It's Tuesday, right? I've kind of lost all track of time. Any interesting things happen to anybody over the weekend? Right here. You were in Ogden all weekend? And that's interesting. All right, yeah, round of applause. Ogden. The greatest place on earth. Okay. What?
I came to the powwow here.
You came to the powwow? I saw the sign. I didn't realize it was this weekend. How was it?
It was interesting. It was really nice to see like different kinds of dancing culture. And right after, I think it was like the Navajo went the Aztecs dancers. And I thought it was very interesting that one of the little Navajo girls was going and like right there trying to dance exactly like the Aztecs.
Yeah.
It was really cute.
Huh.
She was trying to enjoy and learn a new culture. I thought it was very inspiring. Like, it was really cute.
Yeah. I've been to the powwow here a few times, and it's a good experience. I recommend attending it. I just didn't know when it was this year. Okay, so today we are going to deal with, ideally, if we got enough time, we're going to deal with your questions that I had a decent response rate on my little survey that I sent out, so we'll deal with some of those questions. They tend to fall into certain themes. It was kind of fun. It's kind of fun to do one of these surveys because it gives you a tiny bit of like a hint of what you get as course reviews at the end of the semester. And hopefully what I can do to correct some of that. But funny thing about being a professor is, especially if you teach like history and or political science, like at the end of each semester, I will have a certain number of students who will accuse me of having been a communist. I'll have a certain number of students who will accuse me of having been a Nazi. I'll have a certain number of students who apparently have been like bottling up hatred, like pure hatred. And then they try to like, I don't know, push me over the edge, right? And they're just like, I hope you get hit by a bus and stuff. It's just, no, serious, I'm dead serious. I have like I don't know. This is true of like all professors. There's at least one student who just like totally unloads on you, right? Anyway. But most of them fell into pretty reasonable categories, things that make sense and that should be addressed. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to kind of talk about political ideologies because I think they are important to understand going into World War II and going into the Cold War. We have to like understand what communism is, what socialism is, how they differ from capitalism and classical liberalism and modern liberalism in the United States and all that sort of thing, fascism. And so, and that will help you to know which label to give me at the end of the semester too, when the course review. So it's accurate. I'm going to start on the Q&A. I've kind of tried to consolidate the questions I'll review. I'll look back a couple of times, but I think I've mostly figured out the categories of questions and sorts of questions that you have to answer or that you had for me. And they're probably best summarized with this. What is the deal with everything in this class, right? Does that capture it for just about everybody? Okay, so you concur. I like that. All right, so what is fun, and I don't mean to pick on individual people. This is anonymous, of course, right? So I have no idea who you are. However, there's usually at least one good example where somebody, and I kind of imagine it as somebody talking without like taking a breath, where somebody really like in a single comment just lays out all of their fears and concerns and anxieties about the course, and it serves as a good roadmap for the whole discussion. So here it comes. And I'll try and read it like the way I imagine it. And this is probably not fair to the person who wrote it, but this is just how I read it. Okay. How are we supposed to get anywhere close to 1,000 points by the end of the semester? I feel that the layout of having guilds was a total waste of time and effort since we couldn't get things together until halfway through the semester. As far as guild organization goes, everyone should just have the same assignments, and the guild that will win the guild cup will obviously be the futurists due to numbers, so that isn't even fair. And why are all the assignments suddenly sprung on us at the very end of the semester with practically no assignments at the beginning? The class just seems very poorly set up, but I understand this is the last minute thing for you to teach this course and a first time for you to do it in a large lecture setting. But I feel it should just be like many other classes where perhaps all we have are weekly quizzes on Canvas, papers we have to write, evenly distributed throughout the semester, no out-of-class C-school things we have to attend. People have crazy life schedules as it is, and then tests a few times in the semester. Signed, Anxious Students. Is that it? Yeah. All right. All right. Now, is that the guy back there? I love it when people own it. Yeah. Good. All right. So I'm going to just like dissect this and kind of point out why I think it's crap. No, I will honestly try. I'm going to honestly try to address all of the pieces of this in a way that I hope will set you at ease, but also help you understand. And I've tried to do this a number of times with some of these things, but I beg you, hear me today and internalize what I say when it comes to some of these things, okay? All right, first of all, with points. There were a number of, I couldn't tell you how many, people who are like, there's no way to get to 1,000 points, how is this gonna work, I don't understand, da-da-la-la-la. Now, first of all, let's just cover the one that's up for this week. The Religious Liberties Symposium that's being held by the Constitutional Studies Center. We kind of looked through it and we thought there were two panels that were relevant to this course that deal with some interesting issues. The first one is this panel up here, Religion in the Public Schools, revisiting Engel versus Vitale. This will sort of be looking at a constitutional issue regarding religion in the schools and the role that it plays. And that's a timely issue and one that is certainly a common thread through American history. And what I like about it is that it's something that we're not going to have a lot of time to talk about in this class, so it kind of fills in well. And then taking that more to the present, political engagement by, oh, this thing is dying already. I really need batteries around here. Political engagement by religious leaders and churches. So that one should be pretty good, pretty helpful, etc. Are there more batteries down there?
Double A or triple A?
Triple A. Bust them out. So you can go to, I would say, let's just say you can go to one of these. I don't want you necessarily to try and get points out of both of them. And it's the same basic thing. We're looking for a brief reaction paper, right? 1 to 2 pages, kind of proves you were there and what you thought about the arguments that were made, whether you agreed, whether you disagreed, what you thought the best points were, that sort of thing. It's not real hard. Just something fairly simple and straightforward. And this will be another 40-point assignment. Now, if we count this, and if we actually look at the syllabus in terms of, is that a hand?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is on Thursday.
Yes.
The concern with this is that it's like between some people's classes. Like I have a class, for example, that's from 2 to 4. So I won't be able to attend either of those.
Okay. There are 300 students in this class, so I can't really control everybody's schedules.
Right, but it's like how do we that can't go get the credit for that?
Yeah, you can't. So we'll have other, let me get to that point. So, if we just take the big picture, okay, midterm, stuff we've done already at the beginning of class, participation points, One of the weak areas is the in-class quizzes, because we haven't done nearly as many of them as we had planned to, so we've got to come up with what we're going to do with regard to that. But if you just kind of take what's in the syllabus, the indexing assignment, your guild assignments that are sitting out there, both the C-School options, right? At the low end, right now, there are about 1,200 points available, okay, sitting out there. And I know that there are a variety of conflicts. Some people can't be there for April 15th, therefore they're not doing either of the C-School things. You know, some of you have been able to attend some of these lectures, that sort of thing. There are those conflicts, and I recognize that, okay? But just to be clear, for those who had this concern that it's like impossible to even get to 1,000 points right now, sitting out there right now, again on the low end, you know, there are about 1,200 points available. Now, this leads to an interesting question. A lot of people are concerned, like, how do I know what my grade is? And you have like standard like student panic, right? This is what I call student panic, where you're like, what's my grade? I don't understand. And the part of the issue is that with a class this size, we're just really overwhelmed in terms of grading. So let me just give you philosophically where we're at, and I think this will help. You took the midterm, right? And it was fairly brutal, I think, for most of you. And so from that, I can see how you would extrapolate that I will be an evil grader and destroyer of souls, right, as a teacher when it comes to grading in general. That is not the case, right? Okay, so generally speaking, when it comes to like the guild assignment, like those little guild papers with the indexing assignment, with any of these things, if you do it, and when I say do it, I mean it's clear that you understood the assignment and did your best effort. It doesn't have to be written perfectly. It doesn't have to be, you know, Shakespeare. You're going to get full credit or close to full credit for the assignment. So I hope that helps with the calculus in terms of how the points are going to work for these things. So just bear that in mind as we move forward. The writing assignment. So I'm going to have a guide up for the writing assignment for each guild, because it's a little bit different for each guild, right, for this class. The writing assignment will be due in the syllabus. It's due on the 20th. I'm going to move it to the 27th. The writing assignment is not that hard, okay? So if you've done your indexing, for instance, for the futurist, if you've done your indexing work as a futurist, then you've basically done almost all the research that you need to do for this paper, right? Like you may want to go, the one thing that futurists will have to do is kind of go and say, all right, what is going on if you read a paper that was written in 1928, or excuse me, a story that was written in 1928, then you're probably going to want to go and look at what was going on in American society in 1928. You may want to look up the author, see if you can learn anything about them, right? Some of these guys are still alive if you're reading some of the stories from the 60s or the 50s. See what you can learn about them, and so that you have a little bit of context. But outside of that, right, like basic internet research, you've done most of the work. At the point where you're done with your indexing, you've done most of the work that you need for this paper. You just need to write the thing, right, and compare what you're seeing within 2 or 3 of the papers. So it's not like you have to go and do a bunch of outside research, right, and find a bunch of sources or anything like that. You've basically done the research there. With regard to the other 2, you just have to do an oral history interview. And with these, they're basically designed so that you should be fairly easily able to do an interview with your father or an uncle or a grandparent or an aunt or whatever, and cover that assignment. And I will actually provide you the questions to ask. Now, you may want to add in some or change some to be more specific to the individual that you're talking about, but I will actually give you the script, right? So you don't, there's not like, hey, I have to come up with the script and figure all this out. So the writing assignment is pretty straightforward as writing assignments go, especially for a history class, okay? As a history major myself, I can tell you that this is as kind as it will get, okay, as a history paper goes. So I hope that helps a little bit. Then finally, and I wish to emphasize this, though I can't give you specifics at this point, I want to say let's give this a couple of weeks and then I will return to this question. But I will not punish you. You will not be punished if things do not work out as we planned, right? So our intent was to have enough points, have them out there in such a way that you would easily be able to meet, have the 1,350 points or whatever we said would be available. If that does not work out as intended, I'm not going to punish you because our timeline was off and we weren't able to accomplish what we wanted, okay? That's all I'm going to say for now. We'll readdress it in a couple of weeks and I'll say what that looks like if we're still in that situation at that point. Okay, yes, ma'am.
When is the writing assignment actually going to be posted on the campus?
This week. So I'm not sure if I'll have time to finish it today, but like tomorrow morning at the latest, I would think. Yes.
Also,
yes.
As far as all of the assignments for each building have been posted, at least for the futurists, it's like it was open from this date until April 20th. But by the way, it's due on the 5th. What's the real due date?
Okay.
Just says it's open.
Matt.
Yeah, so those are due on the 5th. In the syllabus, it says that you'll receive a point reduction for every week that you're late with those. So they're due on the 5th, but you can still turn them in until the 20th. You'll just get less points as we go along if they're later and later than the 5th.
That seems really confusing, Matt.
We didn't want to overwhelm you guys at the end of the semester by having all the points and assignments due on the same day at the end of the semester. We wanted to stagger them a bit to give you guys options and time to work on indexing because the writing assignment was out of the way. Does that make sense?
We're going to have a discussion about this.
Okay.
I didn't really.
TAs might be fired at the end.
Yeah. Yes.
Just want to clarify, indexing is due the 10th, right?
Yes.
The 6th.
Yeah, it's the 10th. It was originally the 6th. We moved it back a little bit. So you got a little more time.
It's kind of a personal question, but like with the indexing, my name wasn't on the indexing thing, so I don't have anything to index.
Talk to Matt.
Or Aubrey.
No, talk to Matt. Matt's he's in charge of names. That's his responsibility, right? Okay, all right. You had one job, did you? Okay, all right. All right, let's keep going, because there's more stuff to explain. All right, guild organization, last minute assignments, why are you trying to ruin my life, right? Okay. So, a couple of things here. Number one, I will take the blame for the fact that I, as stated in the long quote that I listed at the beginning from a student, this is the first time I've taught a large section course. I've not actually taught this specific history course before. I've taught a similar course. And I got the assignment very late. Now, the rational thing to do, and I was informed to do this by multiple people, was just go and like copy some other history professor's class and do that, okay? But that would destroy me, okay? Because I don't do that, okay? And this is a very important piece that you have to understand about me, is that I really, really care about my job, okay? So I love what I do. I love history to the core of my being, and I want you to come away with a better understanding of it. And so that, for me, means being a little ambitious. And I'd rather be ambitious than spineless and give you a bunch of Scantron tests, right? So to the extent that I was overly ambitious, I take the blame for that. But at the same time, my mind always goes back to, I had this history teacher in high school, and he had been teaching for like 32 years or something. And he would come to class, and he had a little podium, and he would break out his notes. And when I say his notes, I mean the notes he wrote for this history class the first time he taught it 32 years ago. And they're like brown and like crumpled, right? And they're like, they themselves have become a historical artifact at this point. And he just proceeds to read from these notes, right? That to me is like a crime against humanity, okay? So I would much rather throw in stupid videos, right? Which I'm sure, again, course reviews, some of you will have been offended by. But I'd rather throw in stupid videos, do some different things, and do something that I hope will help you to remember some of these issues, even if just a few of them sink in. I have a moral opposition to the way in which most courses are taught, in that we force you to memorize something long enough for you to go and dump it into an exam and then forget it for the rest of your lives, right? And so, no, I hate that. So the ambition piece, all that, I'll take the blame for it. Now, with that said, we're now going to have a public service announcement from our TAs. Okay, Matt, you've been designated as the sacrificial lamb.
I was told that I was I was designated to do this at the start of class. So I prepared an official statement with regards to everything that's been going on and all the chaos that has happened. We're sorry.
All right. Good. Don't you forget it, all right? All right. Okay. Now, Guild Cup. There was a brief thing in there about the Guild Cup where it was like, obviously the futurists are going to win. There's this thing called averaging. So I'm going to take the average from each house, and that's how we'll actually figure out the Guild Cup. So I'll take the points and then divide it by the number of students, and we wind up with our Guild Cup winner. Why can't you just give us the answers? This is kind of how I interpret a lot of this, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, right? Like the average PowerPoint-focused class kind of goes through, and it's just text, and then you write that down, and then you dump it onto the test, and you're done, right? That's what we expect. For me, that is not history, okay? That is not historical learning if I just do that. So part of the reason why I'm pretty light on text and I just have images and I talk is because in part, I want you to be thinking about what I'm saying and trying to understand it rather than just going for, all right, what should I write down? What do I need to write down? What do I need to write down that might be on the test? I want you to actually think about it, right? Now, based on conversations I've had, I'm going to try and be a little clearer about what I want and like summarize things a bit more in text. But the idea at the end of the day is still that I want you thinking about the way in which all of these things works rather than trying to just memorize some facts that you can regurgitate for a test. And there's actually a book about teaching history that's titled this, Why Can't You Just Give Us the Answers? Because that's what most people expect from a history class. Now, again, kind of going back to my high school experience and yours, how many of you feel like you learned a tremendous amount from your high school history classes, right? Probably not too many. I'm guessing that those classes probably followed the sort of model that was proposed here, where it's predictable and there are tests and there are papers and we just give you what you need to know and move on with our lives. So yes, I am challenging you a little bit, and I'm doing that because I think I want you to actually learn. I want you to learn the critical thinking skills. I want you to learn what it is to actually be a historian and to do this kind of work. Okay, C-School. Make it predictable and don't ask for out-of-class things. So I can, on the first part, I think this is totally legitimate. So one of the things about C-School that's important to understand is, to a certain extent, I assume a lot of the questions were from people who haven't taken the course, like the online course piece. But some people, I had several people still asking, like, what is this and how do I do it? At this point, that's like terrifying to me. But if you go onto the homepage, like some of the top links, there's like register for the C-School online course. And then below that, there's like the thing to go back to the online C-School course. So if you just do those things, that'll get you there. At the same time, I need to give a little more explanation, but let's talk. Can you tell us when the training is that's today and where and all that sort of thing, Aubrey?
Yes, I just posted an announcement on Canvas. Sorry. Today is at noon in LA 008. That's in the basement. And then there's also one at 4 p.m. this afternoon, and that is in the classroom building. And then the big competition is on the 15th, which is a Saturday from 9 to noon.
Yeah. Do we have a room for that?
Yes, it's on the 5th floor of the CV. It's that big west-facing conference room. It has a whole bunch of windows. If you just take the elevator to the 5th floor and you turn right, you will see it. So.
Okay. All right. So so there's a little bit of background. There's some of the details. Now, another quote from a student. After I go to the C-School training, then what? Is the next step just going to the competition on Saturday? What's the point of all this, and how does it relate to American civilization? Okay. I've covered that last part a little bit, like 6 times, but I'll do it again. I'll do it one more time. The C-School training, yes. Okay, and then I had a lot of questions, like people just not sure, like when do we get with our groups and so forth. When I do this sort of, it's called the design thinking, is what you're doing with C-School. When I do design thinking, the best way to do it is just give you the basic tools for how it's done, and then no more details, right? Because one of the dangers with it is that one of the concepts that underlies this type of work is that expertise is actually bad, right? And I'll explain that. So like if I think that I know how to solve the problem, then I am no longer open to other ways of solving the problem, right? And we see this time and time again. In fact, some of the biggest disasters and mistakes of history, whether it's in warfare or the Challenger explosion or whatever, those things are results almost always of people being in a room who were certain that they knew what was right because they were the expert in the field, and so they pulled the trigger on something and it blew up, right? And so we just want you to go through the online training, do the in-person training, and then you will show up on Saturday. I can tell you this much: you will get a little refresher on each of the pieces of what you're supposed to do, and then you will be given a particular problem that is a problem that has been chosen by the mayor of both Provo and Orem as something that they're concerned about. I have a list, and literally no one knows what that subject is going to be, not even me at this point. So I will pick it that morning, and then I'm going to throw it at you, and we're going to go through the process in terms of trying to, your team will work to come up with a solution for it. Now, in terms of what it feels like, for those of you who were here Thursday of last week, it will actually be very similar to what we did with the whole interviewing the German Wolfgang and Hannah and trying to understand their perspective, right? The key is trying to get inside somebody's head in order to understand a problem better, and that's how you find a solution. You don't go and ask for a solution. You try to understand them and how they're affected and look for points of doubt or pain or whatever around which you can build a solution. That's the basic design. So, in a very real sense, how does it tie to American civilization? Well, we actually did an example of it in class on Thursday where we literally did this exact process as part of understanding American history. But the key things that you're trying to learn from it are empathy, which, as I stated at the beginning of the class, is one of the key things that I need you to learn from American history, is how to put yourself in somebody else's in somebody else's shoes and understand them, even though you may disagree with them fundamentally. And moreover, the idea that the future, that the past, the present, and the future are three separate things is idiotic, okay? We are the past, and the past is us. We're a result of the past. And any progress we make towards the future is a result of having a good grounding in that past, right? And understanding how things have worked in the past, right? As I've said before, when I work with other innovation people, it kind of weirds them out that I spend more time studying history than I do studying, I don't know, whatever the latest innovation book is. And I will read the latest innovation book, but I generally find those things less useful than actually understanding the past and then just having an approach to trying to solve problems that affect the present day and the future. Yes?
I had a question about the research pool.
Yes.
There's lots of info about what to do if you're going to be in the competition, but I have had a hard time finding anything about what we should do if we're in the research.
You need to know nothing. Okay, so unlike the German one, where like if you were for the German thing that we did on Thursday, if you were an agitator, like I gave you, here's who you are and here's your background, all that sort of thing. As part of the research pool, you just have to bring yourself. And so your background is going to be enough. So the problems, the set of problems that I have to choose from that I'm going to throw at you guys, do not require you to have any special knowledge other than what you carry already. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and where do we need to go and when to get
Same
points for
place.
that?
Saturday, April 15th, 9 at, what's the room? CB 510, 9 a.m. Okay? All right. Okay, so I hope that explains all that, but this kind of still ties into, oh, there it is. Some of the things that we've talked about. Okay, so I want to just tie this in one last time because I think it's critical to understand how I tie the history and C-School together and a lot of these questions and why I think critical thinking is important and why I'm actually, again, the C-School thing is not required, it's an optional assignment, but why do I have these things like this public history project with the indexing, and why are we doing C-School, and why are we doing all these sorts of things, okay? Now I don't have a picture of it, but just background-wise, again, I run an innovation office, I have a sister office with the mayor of Boston, a sister office with the mayor of Philadelphia, and then just to weird things up, we have our office here in UVU, right? And what we do is we try to solve public problems, right? Homelessness, crime, whatever, terrorism and approaches to emergency management. This is what we do, okay? We have to try and solve real problems that affect real lives, that cost lives, environmental issues, wherever the case may be. And